Good evening. Welcome to the September 5th, 2023 meeting of the Millis School Committee. I will start by announcing that this meeting is being recorded and can be viewed on Mondays at 7 p.m. on Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 37. All meeting videos are also posted to the Millis Public Schools website under the School Committee. All videos are also available on YouTube. All school committee minutes and agendas can be found on the School Committee page of the Millis Public Schools website. Persons wishing to speak during open session must sign in before the meeting starts. Comments are not to exceed 3 minutes in time. Individuals may not name students, staff, or parents. All topics for discussion must be limited to those items listed on this evening's agenda, and all comments must be directed to the chair. The committee may not respond to public comments. It shall be their discretion to discuss issues at a later date. Start by roll call. My name is Mark Conroy. I'm the chair. To my left, Robin Briggs.
Here.
Shana Canistray.
Here.
And our newest member, Sean Powers. Here. Sean, welcome officially. We have Mr. Mullaney is here. Mr. Wiggin is here. And we do have a teacher rep. Welcome back to school. All right, we will start. Do we have anybody signed in for open session? Perfect. All right, then we will go with teacher rep. If you would like to.
Hello, Mr. Powers. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Right, it's quite pleasant in here, I have to say. All right,
It's a relative term.
Yeah. Maybe it's because there's no bodies in here for the long term. Short and sweet tonight. So the Clyde Brown happily welcomed their first through fifth graders last week, and the pre-K and kindergartners came into school for the first day today, and they report that it was so nice to see all the happy, smiling faces. The Clyde Brown staff would also like to thank the Home and School Association for setting up all the Welcome Back to CFB signs. It was a really nice way, they said, to kind of come back to the school year. And they want to remind folks that their curriculum night is on September 28th, just for the long-range planners. At the middle school, they had a really good prior-to-school kickoff with an incoming sixth grade parent orientation. They said they had over 75 caregivers in the audience, so that was exciting. And they'd like to remind folks that their open house is next week on September 14th. And then at the high school kicked off what they're hoping will be a new tradition with the Millis High School Staff Volunteer Day. So Steve Bigelow and Marianne Ziamba brought a group of teachers to Cradles to Crayons on August 23rd, and they volunteered their time that afternoon, sorting donated clothing and bringing additional donations. And so we're hoping to kind of make this not necessarily to that particular charity unless it works out, but a yearly kind of pilgrimage. Ms. Palladino wanted to share that she has decided to start the year by helping her students understand the benefits of failure, and that failure isn't the end point, failure is a beginning point. So the Spanish classes kind of took a different angle. And so she got this off of an article from John Maxwell. The difference between average people and achieving people is their perception and response to failure. So I thought that was very interesting. The school counselors wanted out there that the PSATs and pre-ACTs are going to be happening on October 14th for our sophomores. That's always a fun Saturday morning activity. We have I believe our first home football game this Friday, if I am not mistaken. My student rep gave me a few details, but we were lacking a little bit. And I know that the pep band is very excited to be playing. Prior to the start of school, all the sports teams were practicing, and we had a really well-attended dance camp happening. Wrapping up Nutcracker registration as we speak. Our STEAM scholars are in month 3 of their reports, their projects, so I'll be sharing out some details of that. And the high school is doing their summer reading tomorrow morning. So for those of you who aren't familiar, what happens with summer reading at the high school is each teacher picks a book they like. Students sign up to sort of read it anonymously, and then when they come back to school, that particular teacher will run their session for the students that are in front of them. So for example, the group that I have, we read The Tipping Point. So that's what we're going to talk about and do our assessment on tomorrow. Let's see. Additionally, from the district Spanish program, we have 2 conversational assistants this year. Belen Portugal Martin has joined the middle high school staff, and Emma Espardo Esparza will be joining the Clyde Brown Immersion in World Language program. So we're very excited about that.
Excellent.
Any questions for me?
No?
Excellent.
Well
Enjoy
said.
the rest of your. Did you have fun on your tour?
Yeah.
It's nice and quiet at this time of night.
Yeah.
All right, everyone have a great night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks. All right, we'll move on to our action items. The first one is consideration to approve the July 18th school committee meeting minutes.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Briggs.
I make a motion that we approve the July 18th, 2023 school committee meeting minutes.
I second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have a consideration to approve the request from Girl Scouts Troop 64074 to waive facility fees. So it's in our packet.
Yeah.
So I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Briggs?
I make a motion to approve the request from the Girl Scout Troop 64074 to waive the fees.
I second.
This is the facility rental fees, and my understanding is they'll be meeting during
Yeah, they
operating, so there's no,
Yeah.
custodians aren't here extra, so there's no
Right,
custodial
there's no
cost.
extra time.
That would
Yeah,
be
so they
assigned.
did this last year. They're using the cafeteria until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The school is still open. It's for the kids at the Clyde Brown because there isn't enough space there because of extended day.
Yes, and they the troop leaders make sure that everything is cleaned up and
They are wonderful guests.
good. Glad
They
to hear.
really are.
Full
All right.
disclosure, Shannon, my kid's on
Yes.
that, so
Yes.
just know that out there.
I-
Shannon's the troop leader.
Yes.
All right, no further discussion. It's been moved, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, and moving right along, in the chair report, MSBA update. We did officially sign Compass, which was, forget what their name was.
Vertex.
Oh, Vertex.
Yeah, who was
Who was Compass. That's
yeah.
it. Vertex, who was Compass, who were the project managers for the Clyde Brown, are officially the project managers for the renovation addition project here, and still in real early stages of design, with the design phase, which is the next phase. The school building committee just appointed the 3 members who will serve and attend a meeting at the State House for when the design, ultimately when the design is picked. So from the school, it's Mr. Mullaney, Denise Gibbons, and then Rick Nichols is the 3rd. So that's the update there. Fiscal 24 budget update. Mr. Wigan, do you want to come up? I know we have a memo in our folder.
I think it kind of melds together with the expenditure report that I gave you all, which is not a financial report, but it's a sample of sort of what you will see in the future with a couple of slight changes. And I'm really excited about it, actually. So what you see in that report is the purchase order system being executed. It executed well. At this point in time, we have my office doing purchase requisitions, or entering purchase requisitions, and the Clyde Brown School entering purchase requisitions. And the process is a purchase requisition is entered first, and before it is authorized to become a purchase order, I have to authorize it. It's not saying we haven't run into a couple of hiccups, but they've been minor hiccups, and if they've been on the town side, the town's been very aggressive to help us solve them. If they've been on our side, we've worked very aggressively with whomever to solve them, and it's all worked out very, very well. Very positive about it. And then I would say today there's been another positive development in that while I can't encumber salaries line by line, what the town accountant has done is worked out a report that I can get on a regular basis, so that at the bottom, as you see here, you saw that there was another salary that I deducted at the bottom. Well, what you will probably see going forward in a financial report is you'll see that salary, but then you'll see a changing projected number going forward, which will be based on an average, based on a report that I will be able to get from the town. And I will be able to do that not only for the operating budget, but I will be able to do that for grants as well. It is somewhat of a pilot program. I'm not saying we may not run into a hiccup or two, but we're actually hoping it's going to work out quite well. And so I'm actually quite excited about it. And you know I haven't been that excited in the past. So I would, at that point, be willing to answer any questions.
So Terry, just to orient,
Yes.
to make sure I'm reading this right. So what we have is a report that has the appropriation to original budget. So if I just use the bottom number, so 19,296,026 is our total operating budget,
Yes.
of which we've spent $1,542,000.
Correct.
We've encumbered another $2,207,000.
Correct.
So basically, those are expenses that we know have incurred, but the bills have not been paid yet.
Correct. And let me, if I may,
Yep.
could I talk a little bit about encumbrances? One of the things we started is there's two types of encumbrances, basically, in our new process. One is like you would expect. Somebody is buying a thing. There's a purchase requisition issued to buy the thing. That turns into a purchase order to buy the thing. The thing is bought, and then the invoice comes in, and the purchase order is liquidated when the invoice is paid. That's one type. We're all, I think, kind of used to that. But the other that we've done, and I've done this in the past with our districts, and so far it's working out very, very well, is, for example, we may buy a lot of things for a particular school from W.B. Mason, but they may be $20, $50, $10 items. To do a purchase order every single time is not efficient for our clerical staff, and it's not really efficient for my staff.
So we just make open POs.
Well, open POs is one term people use. I have used blanket POs in the past, but either way, that's what it is. And so what they do is this year for the first time, and we'll refine this as years go on, but they've looked at what they bought last year, and they've issued a blanket PO or open PO, depending on the term you wish to use, for 90% of what they bought last year. So that's included in the number you see there. Now, one of the things I've told them is I said, that's not something that's carved in granite. So you come to me in March, and you have used it up, and you've used it up legitimately, and we can track all of that. And you say to me, okay, we talk, and you say, I'm going to need another $500 to get through the rest of the year. And I say, okay, issue me another blanket PO or open PO. And they do that, and that again immediately becomes encumbered. The rest of the liquidation will have gone down and become paid at that point in time. And so it really helps us better manage our accounts. So that's working out really well for us. And I will tell you, I think it's been very helpful to John Engler, because John Engler runs into lots of little stuff. And now with the blanket PO system or open PO system, again, depending on the term you choose, he doesn't spend a lot of time, every day writing these little POs. He now has more time to spend managing our facilities, which is what we want him to do.
Gotcha. Okay. I was just scrolling through to see if I could see some of the big encumbrances on that could be open POs.
Yeah. And there is one other point I should raise when
Go ahead.
I've answered any other questions.
So then that's the encumbrances. So that brings us, so basically then the last column is how much of the 19,296 we have not spent or encumbered, which at this point is 15,545.
Correct.
except for an accrued payroll of 637 as of August 31st.
Correct. And this is where, in a true financial report, once I get those other reports rolling with the town, when I do my first financial report, which will probably be October after we have a couple of true payrolls, you'll see another number there. You'll see a most recent payroll probably, and then you'll see a projected payroll for the rest of the year.
Gotcha.
Okay?
So the
And
whole,
then that
the
will bring
whole
us
year
down.
projected?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And what that will do is basically a moving average.
Right.
The other thing that I should point out as it goes to projections is right now, and let me see if I can do it without my mouse. Let's see. I'll do it the hard way. Oh, and interestingly enough, not in the high school, of course, but there is a line in the high school. You'll see, and I believe it's a tuition line that is currently $34,245 overspent. And then
Yep.
if you go up to the middle school, you'll see some more significant over expenditures. The way the process is working right now is I am recording all of our tuition purchase orders against the operating budget. It's not quite clear to me yet when I would go to the town and say, I need to dip into free cash, or I need to dip in to stabilization. Because ultimately, these purchase orders are for kiddos that we're going to pay for the year. So the second half of the process isn't really clear to me yet, but I assume there will come a time when I can say, you know, you've seen these invoices coming in, we've now paid X amount of number, we've now paid more than our budget.
That's going to be, that I think is that'll be step one.
Yeah,
I think what will also help is when you have the projected salaries in here, and as we move through the year,
okay,
and we're showing that, you know, and my personal opinion that there's a difference between the free cash and the stabilization. The free cash, I think, should be available sooner than the stabilization.
yeah, I assume free cash is first
Right.
up, I
But-
agree.
So we get to a point where when that projected payroll is in, and we can see kind of where we're gonna land,
Right,
you know, within reason. And my personal feeling is free cash should be, except because the other piece of the puzzle is we have to spend those two articles on sped tuition. So,
correct.
So I think a conversation that should be had with the town finance director is, you know, is the difference between kind of posting these and then reclassing stuff, or are we going to use it to pay the actual invoices? Like, are we going to get reimbursed for overspending our budget line, or do invoices have to go specifically against those warrant articles, like directly from there?
Correct. And I think some of it is always, and always would have been delayed till end of year,
Right.
because stuff happens at end of year. All of a sudden, we know, first off, those moving averages are no longer moving averages. They're much tighter. We know that what our openings were and how that affected the budget throughout the year. We know if there were any kind of double salaries that we needed to account for because of leaves of absence, those sorts of things. So all that becomes clear, you know, between the middle of May and the middle of June. And then, you know, what we would ultimately have to get, and I agree with you, the final place we would draw from is stabilization, you know, becomes a real number.
Would we, and you probably would, because most of these tuitions are paid monthly, correct?
Yes.
So we should, within the next few months, and again, everything can change throughout the year, which is a
Correct.
whole other topic. We should have some idea of what the average monthly sped tuition costs are.
Correct, and I could actually probably do that as another separate line.
Because basically what that would tell us is, let's say it's 400,000 a month.
Yep.
Well, that very easily then says, okay, we ride this out till we get to June. We see where we are at the end of May. How much of that 400,000 in stabilization do we need for our 400,000 in tuition in the last month of the year?
I mean, essentially, it's a burn rate for a specific set of
Correct. Right. And
expenses.
then we'll see, to what extent that there's savings throughout the year that maybe helps offset what that
Yep.
what that cost to stabilization is. Again, I'm not optimistic that there's going to be any. It's just the way history tells us.
Yep.
And state funding is not, is that way too up in the air to be optimistic about that?
Agreed.
So I think this format will be really helpful as we go through this year and as we get into the budget process for next year as well.
Okay, good. So that was my concept here, was to show you how we'll report FY24 to you, without really being able to do much, because FY24 is barely started for the most part, as far as payroll goes.
Anybody else have any questions on going through this? I'm sure we'll probably see this frequently.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm expecting
Grow.
early October will probably be the first report that we try to get to you.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right, great. Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Superintendent report. So the expenditure report, that's what we just walked through, correct?
Right.
All right, so then enrollment?
Okay. And if it's all right with you all, I'll mix enrollment with beginning of the year
Yeah.
Yeah,
information.
please do.
Yeah.
Okay. So, call that up. So, obviously, we just started school with students last Wednesday. Today was the first day of school for kindergarten and preschool, so it's a very exciting time. And we're very excited about the upcoming school year. So I'm going to share some of these slides I shared with our staff at our opening meeting last Monday. And thanks to Mark for coming and representing the school committee, welcoming all our staff back. And some early in the year information. So our enrollment, our September enrollment, we have, and September enrollment is subject to some fluctuations because sometimes we have kids who are registered and signed up, and then we find out a week into September they moved out of state. So there's some things like that, but as of right now, we have 592 students at the Clyde Brown pre-K to 5. That's 32 fewer than last year. The bulk of that is pre-K. You may recall one of the things we cut this year was a pre-K teacher because the number of students in pre-K requiring services was significantly lower than the prior year. So we have one fewer preschool that we're running, so that's where the bulk of those 32 students are. Also, we had a big 5th grade class moved over to 6th grade, so that's impacted their numbers. Middle school is at 271, 2 more kids than when we left in June, and high school's at 317, 5 more kids than we had in June. And Ties, we have 7 students over at Ties. And that's the same as last year. We have a total in district of 1,207 students, and currently out of district we have 20 students. And one of the things we talked about in the opening staff meeting is simply the changing demographics in Millis. And like many towns in Massachusetts, we are a changing community, and we're becoming more diverse. And as educators, we find that to be a good thing, having our kids experience different cultures and the different traditions, roles, rituals that are coming into the schools. So you notice that the two groups that show the most significant impact in the last 10 years. 10 years ago, we had 3.5% of our students were categorized by the state as Hispanic, and that would include the Brazilian population. And last year, 11.1% of our students were categorized by the state as Hispanic. White students, 10 years ago, 12-13 was the first year we had fewer than 90% of our students categorized as white. And last year, in 22-23, we had 79.9% of our students categorized as white. So the Hispanic population saw 217% growth, while we saw an 11% decline in the white population in town. So the learners in the classrooms, the profiles are different now. And this change is going to continue, we believe. If you look at Clyde Brown, the difference is even more pronounced. We have 12.5% of the kids at Clyde Brown last year were identified by the state as Hispanic, compared to 11.1% for the district, and 77.3% of the students at Clyde Brown were identified as white by the state. And that's lower than the entire district number. And then with special populations, we also see some changes in the kids that are sitting in our classrooms. We see that back 10 years ago, first language not English, 0.6% of our students met that criteria. Last year we had 7.3% of our kids came from families whose first language is not English. English language learners, we had 0.1% of our students were English language learners back in 12-13, and now 2.6% of our students are English language learners. And so we've seen a 112% increase in first language not English, and we've seen a 250% increase in our English language learners. And of course the committee's aware of that. Part of the co-teaching grant was to provide more English language learner services. So we're working to address those needs. It's also interesting to note that we've seen a 13.75% increase in our low-income students. And part of that, the reason for that growth is the state changed the metric a little bit. And we've seen a 21% increase in students with disabilities, and this is something we've talked about as well, particularly since COVID, the number of students with special needs or the greater acuity of special needs we've seen in the last few years. And 19% increase in what the state categorizes as high-need students. High-need students are EL students, low-income students, or students with disabilities. So one student could fit all three categories, and they'd be considered high needs. One student could meet one of the three categories, and they're considered high needs. And again, Clyde Brown kind of shows us that this is a change that's going to continue to occur in our district. We see 9.4% of the kids over at Clyde Brown come from homes where English is not the first language, and 4.4% of the English of Clyde Brown is English language learners. And the really good thing about that is when they come in to the schools at a young age, it's amazing the progress they make in those early years of Clyde. Just what kids accomplish in the span of a year is just incredible. Clyde Brown, as I mentioned, does have more English language learners than the district. And one of the things we also talked about at the opening day was our goals for the year, and this is something that I hope to present to school committee at our next meeting, or if that's not available, the meeting after that, looking at our strategic plan. And in the draft, our strategic goals for the next 3 years, we break it down into 4 pillars: ensuring rigorous and relevant learning for all our students. We want to support outstanding professional practice among our education staff. We want to provide a healthy and supportive school environment where kids feel like they belong and feel welcome. That's crucial for students doing well academically and socially. And we want to maximize our resources and do the very best we can with our physical plant, and that would certainly include what we need to do for the MSBA. In looking at that second strategic goal, fostering outstanding professional practice, a couple things we're looking at increasing this year to address that is we're going to increase our administrative peer walkthroughs, which are non-evaluative. So, for example, I might go with Anna up in the middle school, and we'll visit some classrooms together. That gives us a basis for discussing teaching and learning in our schools. They're non-evaluative on the teacher's side of things. The evaluations will happen when the teacher supervises, direct supervisors are in there evaluating, but these paired walkthroughs are for us as an administrative team to help us calibrate teaching and learning. And we're going to be looking for 3 things when we go in, and we're going to track it, keep data. Do we see evidence of student understanding of the lesson? What are you doing here? Why are you doing it? Evidence of student engagement, how students are involved with the lesson. And one of the things I mentioned last week was compliance is not engagement. If you see a class where everyone's got their pencil ready, they might be looking at the teacher and have the pencil ready, but they're not engaged. And what makes it engaging is if it makes a connection with the kids. So we're going to be looking for evidence of that, and we're going to be looking for evidence of the real-world connections in the classes. So we'll be continuing. We've done this before. We're going to ramp it up this year. And another thing we're going to encourage among staff is peer observations, teachers going into other teachers' classrooms to observe them teaching. 2 of the most powerful things I think we can do in schools to improve teaching and learning is teachers observing other teachers and teachers sharing student work. And those are pretty low-cost ways to improve teaching and learning, because the conversations that happen as a result of sharing student work and observing peers, those conversations make the teachers more reflective and improve their practice. So we're going to look to do more of that this year. And then just some of the highlights, and when I present the strategic plan, we'll also have focus areas for 23-24. But just off the top, some of the biggest things we're doing over Clyde Brown, it's year 2 of the literacy implementation, and there's a whole lot of work that went on last year with that, and actually the prior year just choosing the materials. So, year 2, hopefully the teachers are feeling more comfortable with it. We've still got some learning to do, but I will say that last year, teachers were very enthused about where their kids were, how much progress they made compared to some of the materials they were using before. And I think one of the great testaments to how much the teachers getting into this program over at Clyde Brown is the week before school started, so the 3rd week in August, we had 22 teachers from Clyde Brown doing professional development. So for that many teachers to give up one of their last weekdays of summer to come and work with, the materials and to work on that literacy implementation. I was very impressed and thankful for that. At the middle school, they're continuing to look at a second step, which is an SEL curriculum, kind of addressing that feeling of belonging in schools. And we're looking at incorporating PBIS into the middle school. It doesn't look exactly the same as it does over at Clyde Brown. PBIS, we have a lot of acronyms, so PBIS is positive behavior and interventions and supports. And then in the high school, we've been working on the vision of a graduate. The high school has come up with the 4 main characteristics that the work will align to. And they'll be working on rubrics to demonstrate, where kids can demonstrate their growth in those areas, in the areas of communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and character. So those are kind of the bases that the high school is looking at, and of course that will trickle down to all the grade levels, so that when a kid graduates from Millis High School, they will have picked up certain skills, knowledge, tendencies, and we work from the back. If that's our goal, well, what do we have to do in second grade to get to that goal? And then just last week, we received some good news for the district, some positive news. At the beginning of the week, U.S. News and World Reports came out with their high school rankings, best high schools in the United States. And once again, Millis made the list. We were in the top 12% nationwide. Number 2,113 if you're counting. We were rated by U.S. News as 81st in Massachusetts. One of the things that was really interesting to me was nationwide, Millis was ranked number 626 for college curriculum breadth. And one of the metrics they used to provide that ranking is the proportion of 12th graders who took and passed an AP exam. And that's something that we've talked about a lot, the fact that kids, by the time they get to the age where they can take APs, they have the confidence, they have the background that they're willing to try it and take it. And I would say that, it's something that we're pretty exceptional at. And so a lot of times when people say, well, it's such a small school, are there limits to what they can do? This is a good example of kids stretching their learning and taking challenging classes so that they are positioned to do well in the next stage after high school. And then last week, Boston Magazine also came out with its best high schools in Greater Boston. Millis came in 24th out of the 150 high schools ranked within Route 495. And once again, for the last 3 years, Boston Magazine has also done best bang for your housing dollar. And it's institutions whose rankings most significantly surpassed the ranking of their respective median home price. So each of the 3 years that Boston Magazine has done this, Millis High School has made the list. And Millis and Littleton High School are the only two schools that have made that list every year. And just for your information, these are the best bang for your buck schools. And they're listed alphabetically. They don't rank them. But a couple things. First of all, it's nice to see Millis on that list. The median home price is kind of scary. When we first made the list 2 years ago, I think the median home price in Millis was $480,000. So it's gone up considerably.
What is it now?
It's $598,000. it's pretty amazing. But again, Millis was identified as a high school whose ranking significantly surpassed the ranking of their respective median home price. So we're very excited about that to start the year. And, you know, again, we'd just like to thank everyone for the support they've shown in the past, and thank them for in advance for their support of our schools. And we wish all our students and their families a great 23-24 school year.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions on any of that? Like Bob said, we'll do the strategic report at a different meeting in more detail.
Right, we'll get into the details and focus areas, action steps, and things like that.
All right, we don't have any correspondence, no school committee announcements, we don't have any old or new business. We do have executive session, so I would take a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Briggs?
I make a motion to move into executive session for contract negotiations for union and non-personnel, not to return into open session.
Been moved?
Seconded?
Been moved and seconded. Yes, so we won't be coming back tonight. We actually have a tri-board meeting tomorrow night, September 6th, and then our next meeting here will be the 19th. Executive session's a roll call vote, so Robin?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Shana?
Shane, yes.
Sean?
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned to executive session. Thank you all very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.